Good afternoon. This is Don Hyman, Chair of the Harbor Management Commission. Who do we have on the line?
Dave Henry here. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Dave Henry. Who else?
Thomas Schnella.
Thomas, last name, please?
Schnella.
Ganella?
Schnella? Yes.
Could you spell that, please? Mr. Ganella?
Schinella.
Ghinella.
I'm sorry. S as in Sam. Schinella.
Shinella. Somebody else is spelling for me.
Yeah.
Schinella.
C before the H. You're perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Schinella. Is there anybody else on the line?
Yeah, Don, good afternoon. It's Bill Perugini on the line.
Thank you, Bill.
It's Jeff Engborg from Pequot Yacht Club is also on the line.
Thank you, Jeff Engborg.
Thank you.
And anybody else, please, on the line? I have 4 people at the moment. Okay. All right, we have in the room, we have Kim Taylor, we have Bill Hurley, we have Anthony Santiago. Mike Schinella. You related to Thomas?
I am. That's my son. Yes.
Okay.
He's taking all the notes, and I'm sitting in there just to.
Could you spell it?
Yeah. Let me go get a card.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Schinella.
You're welcome.
Both of you. Okay. So this meeting is called to order. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, it's time to look at the minutes for a moment, and I have to take a minute to compliment Betty, because the minutes that were issued for the June 18 meeting were, I think, a particular challenge, because it was a very information-rich session. A lot was discussed, and the minutes are excellent.
Thank you. I have good help here with Mr. Stedman. If I have a question, he seems to always have the answer like this.
Good. Well, you know, the minutes give you great perspective on all of the issues that we discussed. In particular, I would just call your attention to the Porsche dealership preliminary review that we had, because I think all of that information is going to come up from time to time as we go forward on that subject, and other topics as well. So I just wanted to commend Betty, and Jeff, thanks for your help on that. But is it your procedure, you do a draft and then he looks at it, something like that?
Yes, if I have any questions, that's what we've been doing since the beginning of time.
Since the beginning of time. It's long enough. Okay. That said, may I have if there are any questions or comments on the minutes other than what I've offered? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes as stated.
Is there a second to that?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Minutes are approved and seconded. Can we vote on approval of the minutes? All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Very good. Thank you on the phone. Okay. That said, I'll go into my report and also tell you that I have a family event that will require me to leave around 6:15. I'm optimistic that we can conclude that our business by about then, but if not, George is going to take over, take the tiller, if you will, for me as I leave. So I wanted to just tell you a few things in my report. You would have seen the news article I sent from the Fairfield Citizen regarding the Porsche dealership. A subsequent conversation with Jared Wardell by myself indicates he'll be following this story. He may even join this conversation and be on the line. He may be on the line now. Jared, are you on the line? Not yet. But this is a topic of clear news value, and he will be following it. I would ask that if anyone gets any queries from the news media on this topic, to please direct them to me. Okay? We completed our communication with Pequot Yacht Club, reflecting per the minutes the conditions that we specified in our green light to them, our notice to them of no objection for them to proceed with the dock improvement plan that was presented to us. All the conditions are noted in the minutes and in the documents we sent both to Pequot and to DEEP. On July 6th, we had a number of meetings by phone and email with the town attorney, Philip Perez, who has been quite helpful. The first one was regarding getting some guidance on when any of us are offered private meetings with applicants who have business before the Harbor Management Commission. How do you proceed if you're offered a meeting to preview an application or a matter? And this came up with Jeff, who raised this very good question. And the answer is that really, for each of us and for our consultant too, it's best to be transparent about this and conduct this kind of business at meetings, such as we're doing here, and not have any sneak previews. So that's policy that we're going to proceed with. Sneak preview is my word. It's probably a better legal word, but that's what's going on. And then we also had a lot of conversation with the town attorney regarding the complexity of the title search regarding land needed by the Army to transport heavy earth-moving equipment to the dredging site and the complexities that are involved there. And I think Kim and Jeff will update us on the latest on that complex development. But the town attorney impressed me as doing everything humanly possible to get this title search done and to give the Army the comfort they need to move the equipment where they need to move it. Whether it happens or not, time will tell, but I really believe everything is being done that can be done. I had email conversation with town engineer Bill Hurley regarding next steps on Lower Wharf, and Bill is here to talk about that. We'll get into that shortly. And then there's a fifth matter that is not in this printed agenda, but I'll just share with you, and that's involving some communication I got from the Port Authority. It was a kind of a routine email to us asking us to inventory future dredging needs. We interpret that to be separate from what we are now setting upon at the mouth of the harbor. What's after that? So in following up with them, I did ask about whether or not the outstanding balance we have of some $266,000, you recall from the SHIP grant that we could fully expend, might that be applicable to future dredging or any dredging or anything? And the answer is no, because that's from phase 1 of the grant program that SHIP was involved with. That has to be reimbursed back to the Port Authority. And Jeff has been reviewing that matter for quite some time and coming up with the procedure for doing that.
Don, I'm sorry, who was asking this?
Port Authority asked us,
of
the state of Connecticut, asked us, in what I imagine was a routine mailing, because we got a questionnaire, one-page questionnaire, that asked rather straightforward questions about future dredging. And so this is a good time to, I think, get that on record with the state. There's a deadline of July 31. So if you two guys could talk with each other and work on that. Yes, Jeff?
Bill Hurley and I are working on that. So it's a project that's being done in coordination with the Corps of Engineers, and they're looking for trying to get an idea of future dredge material disposal needs. So Bill and I are talking, the Pequot Yacht Club would have an input about what you think might be your future dredging needs for the anchorage. The South Benson Marina is another one. Pine Creek is one, but Bill and I have been working on that to submit but again, it doesn't affect our currently planned project with the Corps of Engineers. We can include that, but it's a planning project.
And you'll be able to complete this by July 31?
Yeah, well, that's what we're working on.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, I thought, well.
Okay,
Bill,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sorry.
Okay, that, I think, pretty much completes my report as the chair. And I think we can ask the harbor master for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a busy month, as you can imagine, because of the prime voting season. I've kind of put activities into 4 buckets to talk about them. Enforcement, I issued 6 PFD warnings to self-propelled vessels, kayaks, paddle boarders, reminding them to have PFDs on board. 2 individuals were given a warning regarding swimming from Lower Wharf. 1 vessel was given a warning about excessive speed and wake in the harbor. 2 jet skis were given a pre-launch warning when I saw them at the launch ramp before they went into the water as to what, where they can speed and where they cannot drive quickly. And there was a hit and run over the weekend reported of a vessel at a mooring that another vessel struck it, did some damage to the hull, so we're investigating that. I should tell you, though, that the PFD warnings that we've been pushing hard since May, basically, when vessels started, are working. The last few weeks, there have been nothing. I've been very proud to say people have the life jackets with them on the paddle boards, on the kayaks, as we've been asking. And knock on wood, other than those 2 swimmers, I had a nice talk with the young men at the end of last month in June. No one's been going in the water off of Lower Wharf or anywhere else, so I think the message has been getting out. We've been watching for that. And they know to give me a call at the guard shack as well if they see something. Some of the folks that are down there a lot are told just to call me if they see something. Either I'll go, or a Marine unit will go, or a police officer will go to kick them out of the water. Keep that happening. Next is moorings. I've been doing mooring inspections, obviously, periodically to make sure people tie their vessels up correctly. 1 float line was cut by a vessel inadvertently over the last month. And Pequot, it's great having our mooring vendor in the harbor. They were there within just a couple of minutes of my call, sent the boat out to take care of it right away. So that solved that issue. For navigation and safety, I removed 4 large branches, small logs from the inner harbor. I removed 1 balloon from the outer harbor, mainly because balloons look like life jackets from the distance, and you don't know whether it's someone with a jacket on floating or something out there, so we went out there and get it. There was 1 large log in the harbor management area off of Fairfield Beach reported. Public Works could not get it. It was 24 inches by 8 feet. Neither could I on the whaler because I think it's 10 times heavier than the whaler. So I coordinated with the Fairfield PD to send one of their vessels over to try to round it up and get rid of it. We had an issue with one of the 2 speed 5-mile-an-hour markers at the entrance to the channel. It had gotten tangled up on its anchor chain. Again, I let the yacht club know. They were out there very quickly, and they took care of getting it untangled and floating again. And for safety, I've spent a couple of afternoons now watching the sailing program from the distance on the whaler, the yacht club sailing program. And you should know that they seem to be doing a great job, the young men and women, not only instructing the kids, but more importantly, watching them with their observation vessels. They really keep an eye on everyone. They seem to be doing a great job making it safe for the kids, as well as taking them in and out of the channel, paying attention to what they're doing. Other things we've done, there was a high wind event one evening. I went out and checked all the boats afterwards to make sure everyone was still tied up. I met twice with some other members, with Kim and Jeff and some members, the Army Corps of Engineers. One of those meetings had DEEP there as well regarding the dredging. Turned off the navigation lights on 1 vessel that left them on all night before the battery died. Helped some folks find their moorings as they got their boats in because they couldn't find where their moorings were. Answered questions of residents, random harbor safety questions that come up when they see me, and have been monitoring the Perry Green construction activities and the booms they have out, and that seems to be going smoothly. They're probably halfway done now, it looks like, maybe a little bit less, and it seems to be going uneventfully and not obstructing navigation at all. We moved a couple of moorings back in the area, parallel parked, if you will, to the wall. they seem to fit fine with the Helix area, and that gets 2 more boats freed up so we can try to allocate the space we have and the boats we had to relocate. And again, if any of you are interested in going on a tour anytime on the whaler of the harbor management area, I've taken out some of you. I've taken out one of our former selectmen. Just if you want to see what the area looks like, if you don't have access to it, let me know. And that's my report, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, no questions of Brian. I guess we can move into old business, and the first item is about the Tucson public safety effort. To the best of our knowledge, the Historic District Commission is reviewing the application, and we are hopeful that it will be on their August agenda based on the information we've received. Everything that's in the application, everything is stuff that you have each reviewed many times with us, and so there are no surprises, and we're optimistic that we can move forward on that and just come to some agreement on what size is what, so forth. I think that's the major thing that we'll have to work through, size, and we can be reasonably flexible on that, I think. That said, I think we're up to, if there are no comments on that, we can move to Laurel Wharf repairs. And Phil Hurley is here, and Tom's here, and we can talk. I'm hopeful that we can conclude this session with you, Bill, having, as a commission, decided whatever it is that has to be decided, and with some kind of an understanding, roughly, of the timeline for events going forward from now until the approximate start of construction. And of course, I recognize how tentative all that has to be, but it's just, I think, important and useful to understand the broad parameters of what's ahead of us.
Sure. I'll do just a quick, brief history summary. Back in December 2022, a nor'easter storm caused substantial damage to the Lower Wharf fishing pier and the property or green stone retaining walls. In March 2023, the town board formally approved up to $648,478 for an anticipated SHIP grant, with an additional $162,122 town share. Just this past June, I believe it was June 7th, 2024, the State Bonding Commission, the town submitting an application, Tony Wong and other state representatives were helpful in getting it passed by the State Bonding Commission. And the State Bonding Commission approved $1,073,778. So that, combined with the town share of $162,122, gives us approximately $1.2 million to put the original wharf out to bid. This board, I believe last year, with the uncertainty of the SHIP grant and in trying to at least get something reconstructed, and Jeff has a little picture there, and Anthony, I think, handed out some little handout where, it just in a nutshell, the fishing pier, we'll call it an L shape. And then the original, if you want to call it a T shape, that other section was a much older, kind of derelict section that was probably, 50, 60 years old, and over time had collapsed, and the town never pursued repairing it. But with this State Bonding Commission, we might have the opportunity now to do the complete, what I call T wharf, which would obviously allow additional people on the fishing pier and more enjoyment and a larger area for the public to assemble if need be. With that, though, as I mentioned before, this board only approved the L section. So one of the things this board would have to do is just formally accept the state bond application or state bond grant for the 1.073 million. And then that way we would, be able to proceed further with the town boards, because we have to do the same as well. The next steps would be permitting. And you might recall this commission had hired Race Coastal Engineering to perform the permitting work. They did get the permit approvals for the L shape. Now they have to go back to the T shape. We were hoping that the state would just simply say, oh, well, yeah, you're just adding on that other section, no problem, but the state's never that easy. And so they did say, though, that it should be a relatively expedited and easy review since it's kind of grandfathered in anyway. It's just more of a paperwork formality, but we do have to go through that process. So this board would have to approve hiring Race to continue or reapply for the permit for that missing section, so to speak. There are some other things that have come up. Shortly after the State Bond Commission approved this project and the grant money, we had a kickoff meeting. We had a kickoff meeting, and at that kickoff meeting, representatives of DEEP, who are going to be help administering this contract, to make it clear, the funding is official, so we do have that money. Meeting minutes that will act as the award letter, so when they get sent to the town, then that will really become official on the town side. The bidding process, when we put this project out to bid, must be approved by the state, and on that one, actually, it's the DECD that would have to approve that. We'll need a finance and a budget finalized plan. Again, a lot of that stuff has already been submitted, but I guess they just want it formal for the final agreements. We'll need a resolution from the town, but by going through the town boards to accept the additional grant money, that should be no problem, and that would be part of the process as well. It is a reimbursable grant. I had mentioned DEEP. That's the permit. It's DECD is the administrator, the state Department of Economic and Community Development. They're going to be the ones administering the project with the town, and we have to meet their guidelines, which basically is if the project's over $1 million, the entire project has to be prevailing wage. Other permits that we might need to, or at least investigate, would be a floodplain or flood management certificate, a SHPO grant, a SHPO application for historical structures 50 years and older. Don't know if that applies because right now there is no structure, so we'll have to see on that. But we'll formally apply for that and make sure. Usually now there's a requirement that they have to review it within 30 days. So again, while we're applying for the DEEP permit, we could certainly be doing these other permits. And then they'll probably have us do an environmental survey to make sure there's no hazardous materials. Since there's state funding, not really a concern here, but when we go out to bid, we have to follow CHRO for disadvantaged business enterprises and minority businesses. So that's the recap on all the information that we would need to provide and have. And in my opinion, again, this board would approve basically to proceed, accept the grant and proceed continue to hire Race to fill out the permit application. Race is aware of this, and probably within the next month, they could certainly start the process of starting the permit work once it's granted the go-ahead. And then the permit process roughly would be probably a 6-month period. And on the application I had put down originally, I think it was we could perhaps start the construction around December, but now by having to go with the permit, The goal here would be to assemble the bid package by February 2025 and then be given the go-ahead to construct the work. So I'm here to answer any other questions you may have.
So you're optimistic that the money will be there for the T pier instead of the?
Well, right now, the initial, I gotta be careful because it's a public document, but, the initial, grant that we were looking for, that was based on the consulting engineer's cost estimate. So, you know, if you prorate that for the missing section, the 1.2 should be enough. Again, the way we've seen bids, sometimes the bid will surprise us, be a little bit lower than what we think, and unfortunately, some of the bids have been coming in higher. Luckily, for the most part, if nothing else, a lot of the materials have now stabilized, at least. They're not pre-COVID by any means pricing, but they've stabilized, so we're not getting the, you know, uncertainty like the stock market, you know, with pricing. It's pretty much now consistent or leveled off. So this should be enough. If not, we could either seek additional money through the grant or through the town. So, sure, Jeff.
When you talk about the SHPO and the flood management certificate bill, is that just for this additional permit, or do we have to go back and deal with that for the whole project, since the whole project now?
Those requirements, I should say, are because we got the grant money.
So now we have to, that's different than what we've done in
I believe
in addition
so,
to the
yes.
permit that we have now.
Right.
We've got to do these additional reviews.
Right. Now, the SHPO grant is typically, it's an online form. As I said, I don't even know now if it technically applies because there is no more fishing pier right now. But it's if I recall, it's like a 2-page thing. It's not that much. The flood management certificate, again, the location is in the same location. We're not causing a conveyance problem. We're not causing any environmental, as far as I know, any additional environmental impacts or anything like that.
It's a requirement.
Yeah, it's a requirement, but it should be fairly straightforward, yes.
And can the additional monies to retain race, would that come out of the grant also?
That is something I will have to double check, but if not, I would certainly think that could come out of our town share, which is already $162,000. So that's what I would propose, is to just take that out of the town share. That's been already approved.
So tonight, does this board have to make a motion, approve a motion to formally accept the grant, and so the process moves forward?
Yes, that's what I would suggest, is that the board or commission accept the grant, propose to use some of the town share to hire Race, or you could use another consultant, but might as well use the same one that's been doing all the work. And then to proceed or continue with the permitting process.
So would it be kind of two motions that we vote on? One, to accept the grant, and two, to engage with Race or to expand the permit to be the T configuration, or?
Well, when you accept the grant, we're going to go from the L to the T, in my opinion. That's what you would do.
Because the grant application was filled out based on the cost for the T. So that was the proposal that we submitted the grant application for.
So if we went to an L, we'd have to resubmit that.
Right?
Not the other way around. Okay.
I don't know about that.
Well, this board's already approved the L.
Yeah.
And the town boards have already. It's just that politically, we went and got the whole thing for the T. I would recommend that the board go for the whole thing, because this may be the only chance that you get to do the full fishing pier.
So the motion would be to accept the grant and to move forward with a T configuration.
Right, correct. And then from there...
One motion.
Right, one motion, and then the other motion, if it's required, would be to proceed with the go-ahead for the consultant to proceed with final design plans and the permitting process.
And the other part, too, we still need the administrative approval of a coastal site plan for the work on the wall with TP&Z. So Bill and I have been discussing that. That should be a straightforward. What TP&Z has asked for is the form is fairly straightforward, but the protective measures around the wall when the wall is being worked on, similar to what is done on the Perry Green wall. So that we're including the same description of those measures that engineering did in their application for the Perry Green wall. So
and again, that's something that we could have Race do, or at least with the proposal, or we could do it in-house.
Yes, the idea is we would just do that. But again, that's an administrative review, not a public hearing, and we talked about that with the town plan and zoning staff. But that doesn't affect any of what we're talking about.
I mean, to make it simple, like you said before, you accept the grant and the T configuration, and then make a motion to proceed with the final design and permitting, and then you don't have to say what permits, and then that way, whatever's required, we either hire Race or Jeff or the town, they'll do the rest of the work.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, well, so this is, I'm not sure if this is a comment or a question. For those on the phone, this is Doug talking. I reviewed some of the previous minutes before the meeting, and I think in previous discussions, we were referring to what we're calling now the T configuration as the full pier. Mm-hmm. So that we're in an L configuration now, but the minutes reflect discussions around a full pier previously. So I might just suggest that when we make a motion to move forward, that we talk about it in the context of applying the permitting for the full pier. That's in its original T shape or something else, so that it's consistent with how we've been referring it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The only other comment I would make is that this pier that is now being replaced is somewhere around 100 years old or something like that. So the pier that we approve and eventually start to construct, whatever, will be around, let's hope, for at least a century. So that's a really kind of forward-looking mission that I think we could feel very good about, and it seems worthy of a T versus an L.
I might just mention, just for the discussion in the background, is that at one point this north section extended here a distance. The Harbor Commission removed it, hired a consultant and got the approval to remove it. And we removed that because at the time our Lower Wharf project involved adopted a community sailing program here. So we removed that to make more of an free access to community sailing. Then that didn't work out. And so at the same time we took off so yes, at one point this dock extended here, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about restoring it to the end,
restoring it to the the existing piles that are still remaining. Yeah.
Brian.
Okay. I'm just going to ask, the T versus L configuration to me seems. I mean, is there a public use demand that suggests the T is what we need to go with, or is there an advantage by having it an L, reducing the cost, reducing the construction time, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know. I mean, are we putting in the T because that's what was there, or are we putting in the T because that's what the public use would require?
I think it's just kind of a subjective answer, because I don't know that there's been a study that has captured the data. I think if you had a T, people would use it. We had an L for a long time, and people use that. I think the goal is to think ahead 100 years. It would seem that the full version of the T would be the most accommodating.
That's your point.
Yeah, I mean, I would support that. I mean, I don't think it's a data-driven decision outside of the fact that in the strategic plan and other documents, we know that the enjoyment of the harbor on land and from shore is what's valuable to people. I know when the L configuration was up, it was not able to accommodate at times the amount of people that wanted to fish off that pier to access it because of the space that's required. So I do think, subjectively, it would be used to the fuller potential as a T.
That's true. I remember that now. Brian.
just one thing, Bill, if we can consider, given what we're going through now with the Perry Green construction and your scheduling you just talked about, a couple of considerations. One is we don't know definitively when they're going to start the harbor, so the dredging of the harbor. So we wouldn't want an overlap, especially if they have to put booms out, narrowing what is a narrow spot already. Number two is just the general timing. That's such a popular area in the summer for people just watching the boats go by, fishing from shore, just hanging out. I'm not sure if we want to be in a position where February we look good, we bid it in February, and then I get the phone call May 30th, the month we're going to have Perry Green closed. Lower Wharf closed for construction. We may be better watching the timing. Maybe this commission should make that decision if we get to that, if you want to do this after the sailing season and the summer season is over.
Well,
Service, I don't know.
what I would, again, assuming that it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get completely through the town process, and like I said, the town has already approved the 162. So in my opinion, only my opinion, but in my opinion, you should be able to say, yes, go ahead with the permitting. And so technically, we'll just say tomorrow, the consultant could start working on that permit. And by doing that, they'll get a 1 or 2 month jump, all right? And then if we are able to get it in December, January, or February, the bidding process, and again, knowing that, or sometimes DEEP at least gives you a feedback of, yes, we're ready to approve it. There might be a 30-day comment period or something like that. Well, by then, we could, at the same time, concurrently give it to purchasing and go that way. The Perry's Green should be done by the end of this calendar year, so that should take that out of the equation.
Right.
And as far as dredging, in the latest talks that Jeff and I had yesterday with the Army Corps, it looked like they were scheduling it for October this year, if it's possible, or we'd probably have to wait till next year. So assuming the same situation, it would be next October. Right. And so again, so you would have February or March even.
How long do you think it'll take to put up the T? I mean,
that is interesting. I should know that. I could probably refer to the building department, but I gotta believe, certainly once you get the piles in place, it's just like a deck. I mean, it shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 weeks, for the decking. So, I mean, I'm thinking 90 days. 90 days is probably the most,
But the project is not only the pier, of course, it's all of the masonry around the...
Right, but I'm thinking in terms of the competitiveness of the waterway.
I'm worried about both the traffic on the water if the dredging's not done. We stick booms out there again like they did at Perry Green to restrict flow of boats. But more importantly, this commission, do you want to have the Lower Wharf off the grid for another season or for half the summer? And, if it's a 90-day project and you start in February, it's really March or April, then next thing you know, this time next year we can have it kicked off. I'm not sure how the public will perceive, or they'd rather just, all right, we'll do without the fishing pier until the fall of next year. I don't know, just a thought. Think about it.
The only thing I would say on that is that we gave the impression, that doesn't mean we're, held to it, but we gave the impression that, and maybe one of the reasons why we got the grant money is that we'd be able to start the project 0 to 6 months from now.
Shovel ready.
Now again, they realize now with the permitting it might be 0 to 8 months, but if you push it too far back, plus you push it back farther, I don't know. We've had a couple of projects that we pushed back a year or two, and they've gone up 20 or 30%. Like I said, at least the costs are leveling off, but you always run that risk. I guess what we could say is that if for some reason the project's bid out if it's not bid out by mid-April, you got to come back to the Harbor Commission, and then you guys got to vote whether we go for it or not, or something like that. But at least you're still giving it time where if we are able to put it out in February or very early March, there's no reason why it shouldn't be done, by mid-May, So, just these are, again, just suggestions.
Two relatively small things that came up in the course of discussing Lower Wharf. One was a past commissioner who suggested, and this is probably the least of your worries, but of the piles, We have a problem now with kids jumping off the tops of piles and swimming in the channel. And someone suggested using those kind of conical tops of piles to discourage or prevent that from happening. I mean, I know that's a small point in the scheme of everything, but it's just something I would register with you now.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that statement. Even a lot of docks, and stuff, they're doing that. Plus, it preserves the life of the pile as well, because water sheets off, and I'm sure the ones that are flat eventually start looking like an English muffin, if you know what I mean. Water gets in, and then that's why they get, dilapidated or.
Thank you. Another secondary point, but something that has also come up in past discussion, and Jeff would be particularly sensitive to this, and that was possibly considering memorializing the pier in memory of Pat Carroll. I know the family has views on this one way or another, or probably would have opinions on this, but I just think it's something we should think about, keep in consideration, that we at least offer the family, if so everybody is in favor of it, this opportunity to think about doing that.
What I would suggest on that, only because we've had similar requests to name a street or name a thing, I think you have to go through the first selectman's office to do that. And then from there, they'll be able to say, well, it's not in our purview, or it is, or whatever. But that recently did come up on a couple of other situations. And so I would say go through the first selectman's office.
We can do that.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
If there are no other comments or questions, I would welcome a motion that spoke to accepting the State of Connecticut's bond for $1,073,778 in bond grant, and authorizing the proceeding with the permitting process and the design of a T-shaped pier.
I'll go ahead and make the motion. I'd make a motion to accept the state bond grant of $1,078,078 and then move ahead to reapply for a permit for the full pier in the original T-shaped configuration.
Thank you.
Chairman, I think isn't it $1,073 on the notes here?
I think it's $1,073,778.
Let me restate that then. To accept the state bond grant of $1,073,778.
778.
And then 776.
778.
And 70 cents.
And 70 cents.
I didn't even get that far.
To
Wow.
reapply for a permit for the full pier in the original T-shaped configuration.
Second it.
Thank you. Can we vote on that? All in favor of the motion on the table? Aye. Anybody on the phone? Can you vote? Hello?
Aye.
Pick up.
Aye.
It seems to be unanimous. Any opposition? No. Okay, that motion has been unanimously accepted. Thank you very much. Okay.
Then we should make a motion I move that we encourage race, or what would it be called? That we employ race to continue permitting for this.
Yeah, was there language to that effect in your,
As far as race goes?
or wasn't race, but wasn't there moving ahead with permitting process?
Yeah, I would just say
To
proceed
reapply
with,
for a permit,
or
which was the language.
proceed with final design and permitting.
That was already stated by you, Doug.
Oh, okay.
In that motion.
Sorry.
Do we need a motion that gets on record that our strong preference would be for construction to be outside of the sailing boating season? Would that be, can you live with that?
It would be part of the minutes, and like I said, if we got that close, as I was mentioning to Brian, then we could revisit that or look at it, but, there would be a decision I guess you guys would have to make if we get that close to it. Hopefully, we'd be able to get all this stuff through.
So we don't need to decide that today, we just need,
Discussion at this point.
it's just discussion. As we get closer and you give us options, we'll act at that time.
Yeah, you could just, for the minutes, you could just simply say that we'll revisit this issue when we start the contract bid process. and you'll have a good idea.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments on this? Thank you, Bill, very much once again for your
Thank you.
diligence and devotion on this important project, which really, yes,
One
Jeff?
of the things to follow on what you just said, I think we should recognize the assistance that the engineering department has always given to the commission, not just with this, but also for the federal dredging project. Bill's attended the meetings, and interestingly, the engineering department did a drone survey of the harbor and the mouth of the harbor today with some still photos that we could post on the website. But just want to, again, thank the engineering department for having this relationship with the commission, to always be assisting the commission, and it's not something that you see in the other towns.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, thanks. I'll make sure I let my staff know that. Thank you.
Nice writing up and shaking the governor's hand.
The team effort on getting that grant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. That said, I think we're up to item 3, sand management, Army Corps of Engineer dredging update. And I know there's been a lot of meeting and discussion on that. And Kim or Jeff, Kim, would you like to take the lead on that?
Sure.
I think we have move the speaker so that it's all recorded.
This was a busy month. Well, it's been busy since we last met. At the end of June, the Army Corps' operational guys came to survey the site. I unfortunately was not there, but Brian and Jeff escorted the fellows who are going to be the land crew and the dredge crew across the beach. They were able to look at the site where they're going to store their equipment. I know they talked about anchoring the dredge, storing fuel, where the pile is going to be, the pile that the land crew is going to take off from the top of the mound before the dredge gets there. The land crew will be there a week before the dredge arrives. Right now, the plan is for the land crew to be there the end of September, and the dredging, the barge, the Currituck or the Meriden to be there the first week of October. So they've taken care. They've seen it and they've planned it, and the guys that are going to do the work know what they intend to do and how they intend to do it. Shortly thereafter, the Corps filed its application with DEEP to do the work. We, thanks to Betty, have a copy of that application, and the DEEP folks initially did not want to come down to the site, take a look at it, but they reversed themselves. And so Jeff managed to get the Army Corps project manager, as well as the 2 folks from DEEP who will be reviewing the Corps' application, to come on down and walk the site. They arrived yesterday, and a big thanks to Pequot Yacht Club. I can't tell you how important it was to have an air-conditioned room where they could sit down and talk to each other about what their intentions were, what did parts of the plan mean, where there were sections, there were things that were not included in the plan, in the Corps' application that DEEP needed. It was a great opportunity for them to talk to each other, and I believe to short-circuit a lot of the kind of administrative stuff that would have gone on and the questioning that would have gone on via email and perhaps phone call. And after, again, Jeff Engborg was a wonderful host. George Finch put us in the launch, and we went out at low tide, which is, of course, is amazing to be in that narrow little section way down on the water at low tide. So the DEEP folks were able to see really how narrow it is. They were also, parenthetically, the gal who would be reviewing the new application for the T-pier was part of that group, and so she was able to see the pier, see the wall, see the work that needs to be done, and she was very grateful for that opportunity as well. So after we toured the site by water, we reassembled on site on the country club property, where the DEEP folks were able to survey all the stakes that are in the ground that represent, where the channel is going to be, where the slope begins, where the equipment will be parked, and they were very interested in the plants that might be impacted by the dredging, particularly at the beginning of the slope. One of the questions that DEEP had for the Corps was, given the impact that this could have on the plants, how do you plan to mitigate? How do you plan to restore? What do you plant? What needs to be restored? You need to identify some of these plants. So that was a significant conversation, and I believe, frankly, again, that it short-circuited a lot of the time that it might have taken the two parties to communicate if they hadn't been face-to-face, because the Corps project manager was able to text back to the environmental folks, we need this stuff, we need these kinds of statements and this additional information. So after we stood on the mound there to be dredged, we walked back over to the Sasko Beach to view the site where the equipment would come across. And again, the DEEP folks had questions for the Corps people about, just how things were going to work and what was going to be the impact and what were the plans that the Corps had made to mitigate any kind of damage to the plant life along the travel route. Interestingly, one of the questions that DEEP had for the Corps guys was how you're going to have this big mound of sand that's going to sit right here. It's going to sit here on the country club site for a week before the barge comes in. What happens if there's a major storm? We can't have all that sand flowing back into the harbor. So again, the ability of the two sides to have a conversation and reassure each other, the Corps was able to reassure DEEP that we've got plans. We're going to make sure that if there is a storm in the forecast, we're not going to let that sand flow back into the channel and into the harbor. So all in all, I think it was a very important meeting. The DEEP people are very anxious to expedite the Corps' application. Unfortunately, it appears that there will be a 30-day comment period, which may prevent things from moving along as fast as we all would like them to. But DEEP indicated it appeared to be a very genuine willingness to expedite things. DEEP also had a question about a quasi-question about ownership, and the agreement was that we would get to the Corps, so that they could submit to DEEP a statement from the town and the country club that they were, in support of the project and had no objection to the Corps' plan. I don't know that status is just going to carry the same weight with the real estate people that a title search would, but perhaps it may get us farther down the road to an alternative if there is no title search by the time the Corps has to know in order to start the dredging. One of the things that the town attorney said in our meeting with him prior to this meeting was that he would hope to he's working on getting us a timeline for the title search. So all the questions of ownership and title are still unresolved, but we're hearing a willingness by all parties to move ahead as expeditiously as possible to get folks the information that they need that get us closer to the finish line. So that's kind of where we stand. The Corps owes DEEP some information, and the DEEP folks were very grateful for the opportunity to see firsthand where the work was going to be done and what the plans are, as evidenced by the stakes in the ground. So.
Do you know when this 30-day comment period starts?
I'm not sure.
Very good, but as with other DEEP permit applications, and it's the same process as a permit application, but the approval is not called a permit, but essentially the Corps fills out a permit application. But at some point when DEEP has determined that they will approve this project, then they put forth a public notice seeking public comments. But we don't know when that's going to be. And the other thing that we understood that there's no provision for a public hearing. In other words, if someone is opposed to this or someone has issues, they can request a public hearing. But because this is a federal project, it's our understanding and also the understanding of the people we talked with yesterday that a public hearing is not provided for in this process. But there's still a lot of things to do. And as Kim said, 20 plus years ago, when we were out on the site, DEEP told us in no uncertain terms you can't affect the plants. But we didn't hear that discussion today or yesterday, that there may be room to move the plants. And when we were on the site, the stakes helped a bit because it doesn't appear to be within this, the one line is the channel line. The next line back is the side slope or the setback line. It doesn't appear that there is a substantial growth of the plants that are of interest in that setback line. Plants that seem to be mostly in the setback from the top of the slope where equipment could work. So how we deal with that, we still don't know. And as Kim mentioned, this question about the ownership, which we're trying to grapple with, but we're looking at that in two different perspectives. From the Corps of Engineers perspective, they need a legal agreement, a temporary access easement. The DEEP doesn't need that for their purposes. It appears that they just need a letter of support of no objection to the process. So I think that we're going to work on that when the town attorney comes back next week. Maybe just a simple, for the DEEP application process, a letter from the town and a letter from the country club expressing support for this project, but not dealing with the legalities of who owns what. So I think all in all, it was a very positive meeting yesterday. The other thing we talked about, again, not for this process, and it's related to this agenda topic, is managing sand in the future to try to slow down the movement of sand over the jet. And we talked about what's involved in getting approvals from DEEP to do that, including work below the high tide line. And they felt that that's something that DEEP could support. But again, we're not. That's after we get through with hopefully with the dredging process. But that was a positive discussion too.
And in fact, DEEP said it was fairly easy to get a permit.
Yes.
For an entity to get a permit to redistribute beach sand. So that's something that we will be mentioning to our friends at the country club.
Yeah. But it involves a coordination with the club and the club having a role, perhaps an annual role, to move sand away from the face of the exposed face of the jetty.
Right.
So overall, we thought it was a good meeting. Yes. But again, all we can do is the best we can to try to move the process forward, and there's no guarantees of when we're going to get the approvals or if we're going to get the approvals.
So the two wild cards are the DEP approval and the approval search?
The timing of both.
Timing.
I mean, the Corps is committed to the project.
Yes.
And DEEP will eventually make a decision.
Right.
But what we learned from that meeting back in June, where there were 7 people from the Corps of Engineers who came, including 3 from the Vicksburg district. So, but the dredge itself is in demand this fall. So if they don't know whether they can go ahead or not by September 1st, then they're gonna pull the
Yeah,
project.
yeah.
And we need to know before then, because there's a need for attorneys to review documents but, so we're doing the best we can. And I think that with Tim involved and that everybody involved has a good deal of respect for the Harbor Commission and recognizes the importance of the project. So,
Thank you. Thank you both.
I've got a question that's sort of related but unrelated, and thank you both and everybody. There's great progress on this. It's really important, but it's cool to see the progress. Do you think it would be possible to discuss with the country club, working that during their off-season, when that clubhouse is closed, to put up temporary wood, sand fencing like you see in June and snow on the opposite side of the jetty to keep wind and water from blowing sand over it? Temporary, it goes up when it's closed and comes down when it's open. You're making your face.
No, this is the sort of thing that we talked about, but we felt that this we do have to talk about this, but the feeling was that we have enough issues now with this title search and getting an agreement from the country club to move the project along, that throwing in another.
Yeah, I meant as a second phase.
Right.
Oh, yes,
Right.
it's a second phase.
Yeah.
That's what we've been talking about.
But, and to that point, one of the things that, we have not completed the update of the harbor management plan. And one of the reasons why is we've been waiting for to be able to put in a section on sand management and to include the information about this dredging project. And certainly if we could have an arrangement with the country club about their sand management, I mean, that would be a very marvelous and important piece for the plan, an updated plan, because then, no matter what the Cohen decision says about the Harbor Management Commission's authority, we would have in the Harbor Management Plan that they approve that this is how we're going to manage the sand. So the permitting process presumably would be significantly smoother going forward, as well as the need to have it done would be hopefully significantly diminished. So.
And Kim, that we would maintain the full 100-foot width of the channel. That was the key thing to put in the harbor management plan, not a 75-foot width, but the full width of the channel. If we can get deep to approve that, then that's what we've been waiting.
So we're very close to big things.
Great. Yeah, it's really great.
And one other thing, while we were out there yesterday, we had George go on a little bit further excursion out the channel, since we had a captive audience, to show them the areas I'm concerned about, whereas anyone with a keel knows it's narrowing as we go out there, so she can visualize, just because we have a red mark at the end of the jetty doesn't mean you can go anywhere near it with a boat. We showed her where the sand has been coming in and the new danger buoy we had to put in, and so they can visualize how important that is, because that'll be your next process. We're going to start, I'm sure, very soon, given the time it takes, a full channel dredging. We have to sort of think about getting forward on that, given the issues we're having.
Good, that's for that inventory that Port Authority wants.
Exactly, so it's good to look at their eyes on it, so they can actually visualize how narrow it's getting at low tide, the entrance coming in.
That boat didn't have a depth sounder on it, did it?
What's
One
that?
of the club launches that you went out on didn't have a depth sounder?
No, but I talked to her, I showed her what I picked up, we have one on the little whaler, and I showed her why we had it with the danger mark and how coming in visually, that whole corner is cut off now. And there's a further point out by 7, I guess it is, how you gotta be careful. You venture too close to that.
But that's not considered part of the channel, the federal channel?
I'll have to take.
Good.
Yes, it's all part of the federal project. And we discussed some time ago whether it should be part of this project that we're talking about. But to do the outer channel is going to require a contractor and the Corps to go out to bid, because it's a different method of disposal. So we didn't want to hold up doing this at the mouth of the harbor, but that's part of the federal project, but it's another phase.
Last year they suggested that perhaps we combine them, but that would put what we're trying to do now out a couple of years, and we don't have a couple of years to play with. No.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Great report.
Thank you, each of you.
All this fun all over again.
Yeah. The drama continues, yes. Jeff Warren had needed to excuse himself. Mike, if you want to sit up here. So Jeff,
The big boy table?
yeah, you come join the big boy table. Okay, Pequot Yacht Club improvement plan. I don't know, Jeff, is there anything you want to say there, or should we go right to 2190 Post Road?
No, we're waiting now for Deep's review, and if they need any other comments from us, we can provide them. But the next step will be Deep agreeing to approve this and put it out to public notice for public comment.
Thank you.
There's nothing else to do.
Good. I think everything's been noted in the minutes, so, and hopefully everything will work out for the yacht club's ability to move forward with that program in a timely way. I'll say, so now we're, it was old business, but that's actually now new business because since these minutes were prepared, the Porsche team has filed its plan with the Town Planning and Zoning Commission. No date for a hearing has been set, I'm told, and that is partly because they're expecting comment from us on this plan, and they're also expecting comment from DEP. And so until those comments are understood, TPC will not be setting a date for the hearing. That's what Emmeline told me a short time ago today. But the plan has been filed. You've seen the digital version of it. I spent about 2 hours with it this morning. Anybody else have time to look at that? Raise your hand so I know who's read what. Okay, so some of you have, and some of you, I'm sure, have looked at it. You'll get to it.
I got 5 pages into it.
Okay. It's a very well-organized, comprehensive plan. A lot of information, and we're going to be looking at this for a while, I suspect. What I wanted to talk about today was really a process for digesting this plan, understanding this plan, and coming up with ultimately what will need to be comments, probably in writing and possibly in person at any town hearing that comes up. I'm new to the procedure of digesting a plan of this size, 285 pages, I think. And I was given hard copies of aspects of this, which I'm going to turn over to Jeff at the moment, unless you don't want them.
No,
Bags, no bags.
What I got, Jeff, was the site plan and the architecture plan. Do you want these?
Yes.
What I don't have, because they only have one copy of it, is the traffic study. But that's not as relevant as these other plans for our purposes. But I would welcome comment on just kind of what will be our process as we try to understand, digest, discuss, and comment on this plan in a coherent, logical, correct way. Jeff?
I have a couple of thoughts. And I also had a note from the representative of the applicant yesterday who said that we might anticipate, or that the earliest date the public hearing could be held is August 27th. So Emily apparently told you something different. But the requirement, and I should speak, if I can, people can hear. Well, I guess that doesn't work. Thank you. So this, just to go a little bit on it, if you don't mind. So this is a project that to be affect the harbor. So therefore, under the state statutes and the town code, it's subject to review and comments by the Harbor Management Commission. So the Harbor Management Commission doesn't approve this or deny it. It makes comments and recommendations to the referring agency, which is Town Plan and Zoning. However, if the Harbor Commission does not make a favorable recommendation, then the Town Plan and Zoning Commission to approve it needs a 2/3 or supermajority vote, which is 5 votes instead of 4. So the comments of the Harbor Commission, though, have to be with respect to the matters that the Harbor Commission is concerned with and that are addressed in the Harbor Management Plan, which we mentioned to the applicant last month, have to do with water quality, has to do with public access to the water and public amenities along the shoreline. And then we also had the question about the steel bulkhead that's there. So the commission will review this and make comments and recommendations with respect to the Harbor Management Plan and with respect to the water quality policies. But one thing I think it's important to, and we mentioned this to the applicant, and I hope I'll just. The commission spent a better part of almost 4 years working on the development and the successful completion of the remedial action plan for this property. And I think it's fair to say that the commission had a major role in this process, along with the Fair Plan Group and the Conservation Commission and the Mill River Wetlands Commission. So all of the diligence that we put into this, I think that the development plan requires a significant amount of thought and diligence to review and make comments on. So there's also on the town website, and Betty posted this some time ago, there's a presentation concerning the history of this remediation project and the role of the Harbor Commission. And I think it would be good if, I'm sure most of you have seen that already, but if you could look at that as part of this process of reviewing the project. Here's an aerial view following the remediation process. And so this is the site that we're working with now. When the commission has reviewed some of the projects in the harbor that have been, and I think we should expect that there will be public interest in this as well, both from the Mill River Wetland Committee and also from the Fair Plan Group and from others that were most involved in the remediation process.
I've received such comment from the Mill River Wetlands Committee.
And so when the commission has reviewed projects like, not the same scale as this in the past, but there were several dock projects in the harbor that had a lot of interest in them. And the commission had a procedure for considering them at a commission meeting. And it involved having the applicant make a presentation, and the commission then could ask questions of the applicant, then having members of the public who wish to speak in favor of or against the project make their comments, and the commission could discuss those comments or to clarify them. And then the applicant makes a summary presentation, which gives the applicant a chance to address any public comments. It's not a public hearing, it's a public meeting. And then after that, nobody says anything anymore, and the commission decides how to make its recommendations.
You're talking about Harbor Management Commission or TPZ?
Harbor Management Commission. That's the procedure we follow with several somewhat controversial projects in the harbor. And so whether you wish to schedule this for next month, but I know that the applicant is anxious to move this forward. And so I don't think that, my thought is that since we've received this, and we've received it 35 days before the 27th, which I understood was a possible hearing date, that this would be a matter for the commission to discuss at its August meeting. And I think we we raised the issues that we think are significant, and that's stormwater runoff and how that's going to be handled, especially since the entire site would be impervious surface now. And then what sort of public area, natural area would be provided along the shoreline, and what they intend to do with that steel bulkhead. And then when we did, not getting into any of the details, we did hear from the applicant that they intended to keep that bulkhead in place. But my thought is that we would be discussing this at the next meeting, absent TP&Z telling us that they're gonna put this off for several months, which I don't think that they would do. The information on the link, Don, that you sent is difficult to deal with. It's hard for me to download it and go through it.
It's fast.
So I made some 11 by 17 copies of some of the first maps that are included in that. If you wish, I can pass those out.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
But it's impossible really to go through those maps, and at least it was for me on.
Yeah,
Every time I click on it, it would like tweet you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge document. It takes time to load on any computer. And this is helpful. So let me play back what I'm hearing you say. You're proposing that as soon as the next meeting of the commission, August, we position that as a public meeting where the applicant would make a presentation to us.
Yes.
Where we would ask questions of the applicant, assuming everybody has read through and studied the information. The public would in turn be able to do that, and then the applicant would make a summary presentation. And I would assume also what you're not saying, but is implicit in this, is that after that hearing, you would create a document that reflected the telling points of that. Is that fair to assume?
I think we might come up with, for that meeting with a motion at that point, because we have to comply with the schedule that TP&Z does for the public hearing. So I don't know that, assuming that we'll know in a short period of time whether they're going to go ahead with the hearing in August or they're going to put it off till the end of September. If that's the case, we would have another month to deliberate about what we see. But if the hearing is scheduled for the end of August, absent a special meeting, we would have to make a decision and have a motion to present at our August meeting. I'll stop in a minute, but the reason for that procedure that I just mentioned is at one meeting, the commission, this was years ago, a controversial project with much public interest, and the representatives of the applicant and members of the audience were talking back and forth, and the meeting got out of hand. So the rule was the applicant speaks, the public speaks, the applicant speaks, and then nobody else speaks while the commission decides what to do.
Okay. I think we need to review with TP. Jim Wen is out this week. Emmeline is there. I had this conversation with her at 4:00, and she said, I asked her specifically, when will there be a hearing? And she said, we don't know. It depends on you, and it depends on DEP. So maybe there's something that was missing in the conversation, but that's the last thing I was told.
And my experience with DEP in other towns is that their comments are typically provided the day of the hearing, because they have a lot to do and they take all the time that they need, which can be, not the most beneficial.
All right. So, I think we could vet the timing of any meeting more carefully with Emmeline and staff there and understand what that is or isn't, and organize our own agenda for August accordingly.
Because if for some reason they say they're not going to hold the hearing until September, then that would give us two meetings. We could have the benefit of a meeting to hear from the applicant in August, and then we could come back in September.
Would it be useful to consider some kind of special meeting just devoted to this topic, or is that cumbersome?
I have a question about the proposed, what Jeff is proposing as having the applicant come in. Wasn't that done at last month?
No, they didn't have that was a preliminary discussion. They had not submitted their application yet. It was just giving us an alert to what they were intending to do, and gave us a chance to give them up front the three topics that we were interested in discussing.
Indeed.
The yacht club did with the heads up the meeting before, and then they came in and gave it an official.
Indeed, many of the questions that came up at that hearing about runoff and so forth are dealt with in their application,
right,
for us to determine if we're satisfied with that, but then those things are dealt with, at least they're covered, and we have to assess that and understand that. Is there any reason also, Jeff, to consider a site visit Is there any aspect of this that?
Certainly. I think that would be, because this project is so significant, I think that would be a valuable thing to do. And then that gets back to our schedule, because one way of doing this is to, at the August meeting, to have the presentation by the applicant and then schedule a special meeting after that. I don't know when we would schedule the site visit, but this site visit would have to be noticed as a public meeting. But we could also schedule a special meeting to come up with our recommendations for transmittal.
Yeah. This is two things to disclose. One, I just wanted to, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. My home is 2 blocks from this site, so I just think I wanted to disclose that to the record. I live 2 blocks away for the last 40 years. I don't know if that has any consequence for anybody, but I just want that to be on the record, that I live 2 blocks away. And I've been looking at this site in all of its forms for many years. And all of the other automotive companies that are in that vicinity too. I just wanted that to be on the record.
Another question to help us decide what to do is whether TP&Z intends to have a site visit. And then if we could join as part of that site visit.
And the only other thing I would say is that September 14th we leave for Europe, and I'm back September 28th. So there's that, if that means anything. We have a very capable vice chair.
Just a couple things from me is, I mean, I think I kind of sense that, like, if we do the public meeting approach and then we get feedback and have to make a decision immediately, that might be a challenge, right? You know, so, and although, well, probably none of us want to have 3 meetings potentially, a site visit, our next meeting and a special meeting, maybe the TPZ approach makes sense for the site visit. Mm-hmm. Maybe the site visit is necessary, maybe the site visit is not necessarily necessary for us. But I do think there's some merit to leaving some time after public comment where, you know, to think about what we hear. Yeah. To the extent that we don't hear it.
Or to ask additional questions.
Right, or ask additional questions.
Yeah, so, I would think that would be a good.
And the only other thing that I would say, I'm sure there's going to be other opportunities for the public to comment on this. And the concern would be if we're doing that first, we might bear the brunt of those comments that may or may not relate to the water or the matters that are our concern. Correct. So to the extent that we do this, I think it needs to be very clear that the comment from the public is restricted to subjects A, B, and C that have to do with the Harbor Commission, not with the overall project. Because whether the community supports it or doesn't support it as a general concept is not really our concern. Our purview is like, how does it impact the Mill River? How does it impact the water quality? How does it impact the things? So I think that would be my suggestion, is that if, you know, when we schedule that meeting, if we have a public section, that we just make sure that we're restricting the scope to the things that we really need to pay attention to. I mean, I think we can take into account what the community's thinking more broadly, but it should really be, you know, focused on what we're responsible for. So
all the boards are very specific about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've also got a question. I was looking at a note I made to myself from our last discussion, and then taking this into account. A lot of discussions around the HMC seem to revolve around water quality, public amenities, and the bulkhead are sort of the 3 big things that I think are on the table here. This may be part and parcel with public amenities, but as it relates to the Commission's role and other town entities, where does public safety enter into this? It's one thing to have access and picnic tables. There's also a safety aspect to the waterfront shoreline aspect of this, right? So is that implicit with public amenities, or is there a 4th one here, which is a safety issue that the Harbor Management Commission may also want to have some review or input on?
Well, again, at the risk of talking too much, I think it's implicit in it. That when we talk about public access, we're talking about safe and enjoyable public access. It may not be up to us to say how that's, you know, complied with, but it has to be a consideration in the ultimate approval of it. So the policies in the harbor management plan having to do with public access include safety and beneficial use and enjoyable use. And so, yes, such things as visibility and, access from the street and parking, those would all be part of the purview of the Harbor Commission, I think, to make sure that whoever ultimately, well, not whoever, when TP&Z ultimately acts on this, and if there are public amenities, which there must be, that they're designed in a way that, and managed in a way to maintain public safety.
But there are no public amenities there now.
No, correct.
So we will be requiring them to add them.
I think they were indicating they were in their plan.
They are.
They have an area with a public access easement, and it's going to be up to us to say whether we think that's enough.
As you describe it, but having a site visit and actually seeing what they're talking about would be really helpful.
I think so. Well, we talked about this several years ago after the completion of the remediation project, and we had suggested that the public amenities be pre-planned, and that we communicate with DEEP and with TP&Z, and this is what we want to see there, and that the developer would then provide those. But that never worked. That pre-planning never materialized. It couldn't be worked out.
Okay. So we have work to do before we have hearings to conduct or meetings.
Meetings, yes.
Meetings. Yes, sir.
As a public speaker, can I not speak to the?
Yes, please.
Or just add a couple of comments, or?
Please do, yes.
Oh, okay. As on the applicant's side, we are, because it's such a time-sensitive situation, we are prepared to speak on the 3 points that Mr. Stedman made: the water quality, the public access, and the bulkhead. I know Emmeline maybe mentioned you're waiting for DEP, but we've already gotten comments back from DEP. Once again, they may not be all the comments, but like Mr. Stedman said, they're pretty good, and they seem to be sending their responses pretty accurately and quickly. We are looking, because it's a time-sensitive situation, we are looking at a August hearing, public hearing, which most likely will be the 13th or the 27th. I'm thinking more like the 27th of August. So I do encourage the Harbor Management Commission. I think a site walk is a great thing. I have been out there numerous times during high tide and during low tide, and it's a very challenging body of water to navigate. I think that's one thing that you will look at because of the bridge situation. And other than with a canoe or a kayak, getting under there is almost impossible. Going upstream under the rail bridge, it's a little bit more doable. I did talk to some neighbors, and I talked to some people in the office buildings, and they're saying all they've ever seen is maybe a kayak occasionally coming down, or, and I know we all at one time did it, a water tube. You get the inner tubes, get in them. I know we've all probably done it once or twice in our history. But in saying that, I would encourage, if we could arrange a site visit, that would be a great thing for the commission. Once again, I'm just saying that. I'm not saying to do it. I'm just offering a suggestion. We would make it available to go on the property and look, walk it, etc. In addition to that, I think that Mr. Stedman's idea of maybe a meeting, I know we're totally prepared, the applicant, and I'm speaking for the applicant, to make another presentation. Attorney Willinger, Mr. Romano, who's with Land Tech, has done a complete set of drawings, as you see, and he's ready to make a presentation on water quality and the thing we discussed about the water quality and whatever's entering into the river. With that being said, I would ask the commission if we could do things as expeditiously as possible, and in any way as the applicant we can help to do that, arrange meetings if it, as to fit your schedule, we would be willing to do so. But I encourage that if that could be done, and I do want to, I'm not sure I got that gentleman's last name.
Mike Baisley.
Oh, Mr. Baisley, yeah. He is correct in saying that maybe the public will have their chance at the public hearing to speak on different issues. You know how the public, you don't want to speak on everything at once, but I think Mr. Baisley is correct in saying that water quality, public access, and the steel bulkhead are the main concerns of this commission, and I think that would be something that I do agree with them on. Anyway.
So our next meeting is August 20th, Tuesday, August 20th. That's our next scheduled meeting. I guess we should decide, do we decide now, or do we need to do a little homework before we decide just to devote that meeting to what we're talking about?
Mr. Chanella comments, we received the application, a formal referral, on Friday of last week, so that's the 12th.
Right.
Right. So theoretically, TP&Z could hold the hearing on the 13th because they've given us 35 days. They've provided it to us 35 days before the hearing. That would be problematic. That would require us to hold a special meeting. But it was Mr. Romano who sent me a note yesterday saying that you were expecting the hearing to be on the 27th.
That's what I assume, but once again, I'm not making a schedule for Mr. Wen. He is the...
That's right.
He's the captain of the ship, so he would be the guy scheduling that hearing. So I don't know when he's going to schedule it.
Yeah.
But you are correct.
But that's going to affect our schedule. I can't imagine that they would hold it on the 13th, which would make it require us to hold a special meeting before then. But I think it's very reasonable to think that they would hold it on the 27th, which then we would need to discuss it during our meeting on the 20th, and maybe have a site visit before then, discuss it on the 20th, and perhaps have a special meeting after the 20th, or a special meeting before the 20th and act on it, during the commission meeting. But I don't think we can. Just have to be aware that this is something that we've got to consider. But I agree. I think this is such a significant project. I think it requires two meetings, one for a presentation and then another for,
So we could be prepared to have some kind of meeting on this on the 20th and additional meetings as events and information allow.
Yes.
So do we invite the applicant for the 20th?
It would seem to be. We can always disinvite you if we just change our mind.
That's happened.
If events are such that,
right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So having a walkthrough before the 20th, invite the applicant on the 20th, and then have a special meeting to...
Possibly.
Potentially between the 20th and the 27th in order to
Possibly.
Or have a special meeting to invite the applicant before the 20th.
That's kind of where I'm going.
And then make the decision on the 20th.
Would it make sense somewhere around the 13th or whatever the date is, but before the meeting on the 20th, to have a special meeting specifically?
Gives them a window of time.
Will that work with
so
notice?
So the week one, that would allow us to bring questions into the scheduled meeting on the 20th and stay on an accelerated.
And perhaps bring answers into the regular meeting.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to put the two things together and do a site visit for, an hour, and then come here and have a meeting for an hour with the public? And, sometime in the early part of, in the first half of August, so we could do the Q&A, do it, just try and lump it together so we're not having 3 meetings, or we could do it in 2. So, what we do, because the walkthrough is
that sounds like
not far down here,
it's
right?
not far.
Right.
The site isn't far from here, so if that could be combined into a site visit, which I will make the property available, have all the gates open, et cetera, and then come over to the meeting, that's a very good idea. I mean, I would think,
Site visit, so that would be A, site, and then special meeting B, and then public meeting.
As we're already scheduled on the 20th.
On the 20th.
Yeah.
Betty had something to say about it.
So are you?
Yeah, this is Thomas Chanella. I just had a question. I know you said in the beginning that you're not going to do any business for meetings that have an application in front of you for transparency reasons. You just mentioned that the what was like submitted to you is extremely long and like complicated. Are you allowed to have like a meeting with the engineer or the person that prepared it without like just like a conference call even for any questions on the submission?
Well, he's trying to help out in saying that if Mr. Romano has to take a call from, let's say, Mr. Stedman or any one of the commissioners, we're willing to do that. That's in the
Exactly.
Moving it along. So our engineer is totally open. The applicant's engineer is open to you. We're not trying to do, for any questions that you may have on the plan, if that's helpful.
Yeah. Even before the special meeting, if you want, like, I don't know, if it's confusing or whatnot. I haven't seen it, so.
I take your point.
I don't think any of the commissioners should do that. The
Okay.
question was whether I could do that, and in the discussion with the town attorney, that we discouraged doing that and having all of the discussions in public.
Okay.
After discussion with the town attorney.
That's fine. I think we should go back to our original proposal where if, like you mentioned, Michael, if there's a site meeting at the site and then we come over to a meeting here, I think maybe that's the best for the commission if they see it as the best alternative. I'll leave that to them. And then on the 20th, have a final meeting, and the public's invited if there's any questions, certainly.
But we also have to provide an opportunity for the public to speak in favor or against the application, because that's part of the harbor management plan. But that goes without saying, I think, and we've always done that.
So is it better to do like the site visit and then the public meeting on the same day, potentially?
Last question.
Well,
Jeff, isn't it the process where, say you had a special meeting on the 13th, say you had a site visit, because I've done these agendas, the agenda the day before when they've had site visits or combined meetings. So the 13th, for example, 3 o'clock site meeting, means the public can go, it's going to be noticed as a site meeting.
Yep.
And then, because it's not recorded, I think that you've got to be careful with discussions with the public.
Yes.
And say you did that at 3, then you did the 4:30 meeting, I'll get a room, make sure that, we have a conference room available. And then you have your meeting, and the applicant would have the engineer and answer any questions. And then the 20th is your meeting for additional discussion and voting. Is that where we're headed?
I think so.
Okay.
With your guidance as to how to make the announcements and
Mr. Chairman, you can do everything the same day if you wanted to. You could have the site meeting and then have a meeting where you begin with a presentation by the applicant, go into the public comment period, and then upon completion, if you feel prepared, the commission then can discuss and vote. You don't have to have that as 2 separate meetings. The public comment could be at the same meeting that you make a decision and a recommendation.
I think that you don't know what the public comment is going to be.
I think the purpose of the space in between would be to allow enough time to form questions.
Or to get answers to questions that
Or to
can't
get
come up as
answers
a
to
result of
questions
the
that
presentation.
come up in the discussion. The question I would have is actually, barring the timing of it, if maybe that site visit and special meeting should even advance to that week prior, sometime the week of the 5th, is 1 week between a special meeting and the scheduled HMC meeting enough time to get answers to questions or form questions? Or do we think the commission or the public would need more time? So what I'm saying is,
Public is
6,
gonna have
7
other-
what's that?
Public has other meetings, other opportunities, they can go
Sure.
to planning and conservation, whatever board is gonna be reviewing it, they're gonna have other opportunities to go and ask questions.
Well, so I guess what I'm saying is I would be fine with either the week of the 5th or the week of the 12th. So whatever works for people's schedules.
But we have plenty of time to schedule this, so we could also have a discussion with Mr. Wendt when he comes back next Monday.
Yeah.
And see what his intention is, and if we know he's going to schedule the meeting for the 27th, then we can poll everybody and see if the 6th or the 13th is the better of the 2 days to meet.
The idea of the 6th, being able to have a little more time to think and formulate and get some questions answered before we go together formally on the 20th.
And that would give us time, we could reach out then to the applicant with specific questions that resulted from the initial discussion on the 6th.
That makes sense. Can we then agree, or do we need, I don't know if we need a motion on this, but pivotal discussion with Jim Wendt on, the timing for the hearing we need to understand that based on everything that's just been discussed. And then the next steps after that, Jeff and I will talk and we'll inform you. I mean, I think do we need to vote on that, or will you just let us,
Well, I mean, it would be worth taking just a poll of the commissioners to see if there's any issues with any of the dates that are on the table or conflicts.
And just before I take that poll, I will make as the applicant, I will make my experts available to whatever meetings, because I know there is quite a few gentlemen and ladies there. Whatever you can work out as far as your schedule, we'll make our people available. So
okay.
That'll, just to give you a little...
So we're talking about a site visit and a special meeting the week of August 12th, possibly?
I thought we're looking at the 2nd.
Okay.
Either the week of the 5th or the week of the 12th, so I'd say either Tuesday the 6th or Tuesday the 13th.
Depending on availability of the commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
For whatever's worth, I have no conflicts in those weeks. Well, I'm looking at the 6th and the 13th.
I have a conflict with the 13th, but...
So the 6th or the 13th would be the day for either a site visit and a special meeting, and then the 20th, our regularly scheduled meeting, would be the public meeting.
Yeah, the special meeting and site visit would be before.
Yeah, either the week of the 6th or the week of the 13th, depending on what we learn from Jim Wendt, who returns Monday.
Is it that way, or would the public meeting be on the 13th to get their comment? So that way you have...
I think so, and I think the public would have a chance to comment at both meetings.
Yeah, I mean...
But I think they should comment on the 13th.
Well, everything will be
available to the public.
Yes.
Yeah. So I, for one, for whatever it's worth, would be an advocate of the 6th for both meetings. I'm free both dates.
Is that acceptable to you to have the public go on the site visit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. If we,
They have to, if it's it has to be
If it's a
public
public hearing,
notice.
I think we have to
I
say
just
it, right?
needed to make sure. I didn't know if there were any, restrictions for access or anything like that, walking.
Just my little experience in other places, that if you have a site visit and it's public, the public has a right to attend. I don't know to what extent they can ask questions, but it'd be addressed, but we can figure that out. But yes, all the arrangements for parking and that sort of stuff we have to figure out.
Okay, so I think we've cleared the dates. I think we know the general cluster of meetings and walks that we want to have, and I think we just need to have a conversation with Jim Wendt, and then we'll advise the commission members accordingly and proceed with notice accordingly.
I'm going to send out an email to the entire commission asking if they, to confirm their availability, to make sure you're going to have a quorum for either date.
2 days. Yeah.
Thank you. Good. Well, that's helpful. I think we're up to item 6, Jeff. If you have anything to say on the plan for conservation and development that you haven't said already.
We've been working on some ideas with some members of the Mill River Wetland Committee and the Fair Plan Group, and apparently it's not urgent, but we can discuss that next month.
Right. I think that the Perry Mill Green bulkhead discussion, I think Brian briefed us on that. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No.
Jeff Warren said the mooring committee did not meet.
Members of the commission, thank you very much. And like you said, we'll make everybody available. Betty just said she'll inform me when it is, so we'll have the gates open, the grass cut, so we can park there, whatever we need to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So is there any comment from the public at this time? Okay. So I think we've concluded our old business items. There's no new business except for what we've just discussed. I'd welcome a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded?
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
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 Very good. 6:16. Very